Showtime! The Capital G show starts right now.
What's up YouTube, Capital G here. So guys, this video is going to have a single and simple topic at hand. And that's simply that we need more and better life point gain cards. Like, doesn't anybody find it just a little strange that since this game's conception, cards that give you life points have never been an integral part of a competitive meta, like ever? You know, just like think off the top of your head. I mean, what is the best life point card in the game? I mean, maybe Thought Ruler ARCHFIEND. He saw some play in the Teledad format and then basically never again. I mean, that is borderline pathetic. And my question is, why can't life point gain cards be like the cornerstone of a competitive deck? You know, I do understand that Konami gave us the Psychic type, and there are a few, you know, life point gain cards in there, monsters like Magical Android and Psychic Life Transfer, but the problem is they're very high risk, low reward monsters. Think about it for a second. I'm pretty sure that all you guys can think of maybe 3 or 4 really good cards that you never even bother with because each one had a pretty substantial life point investment, and it was basically simple risk versus reward, and risk won every single time, so you decided not to play it. Like GRAVEROBBER, I mean, that lets you reuse your opponent's spells that they've already activated, but it costs 2,000 life points, so nobody ever played it. Autonomous Action Unit, I mean, that lets you reborn your opponent's monsters, but it costs 1,500 life points, so people don't run it. My Body Has a Shield counters Torrential Tribute, Mirror Force, Dark Hole. It counters countless monster effects, but again, 1,500 life points is too steep for the average duelist. Memory of an Adversary is an amazing card. Unfortunately, it's one that 90% of competitive duelists have probably never even heard of, which is pretty unfortunate because it's a card that I would say is arguably better than Dimensional Prison, which is a freaking semi-limited card. The reason why no one has heard of Memory of an Adversary is because you have to take the attack directly. You have to eat all of that damage, and if your opponent happens to have a big monster on board, like an Abyss Lead, I mean, you might not be able to afford to eat, you know, 2,700 life points, considering that life points are so scarce in this game, and you know, they're basically a non-replenishable resource in this game. Now, of course, there are some obvious exceptions to this rule, you know, cards like Solemn Judgment, Dimension Fusion, and Brain Control, but these are all outliers, and these cards are obviously so powerful. I mean, who wouldn't give up the life points, because these are obviously game-stealing cards. And you know, I also think that if we had more and better life point gain cards, this could even open the doors up to a new way of playing defense. Like, for instance, let's say your opponent is playing Dragon Rulers and you're playing Black Wings. Your opponent summons Blaster and Tidal in the same turn. You know, you might be forced into having to burn something like a Mirror Force or a Torrential Tribute, even if you have the appropriate monsters or cards to counter them, because you don't want to eat 6,400 directly. You know, you're basically now in the danger zone to where you can't take any more direct attacks from that deck, so you're kind of back against the wall. Now imagine that you're playing a deck with a bunch of life point gain cards, and you decide to just go ahead and take those attacks because you're at 12,000 life points, and during your next turn you're going to gain another 2,000. I mean, it'd be something entirely new. The thing is, you'd be walking this incredibly thin, risky wire, knowing that you're doing this balancing act. Because yeah, you'd have more room to take direct shots from your opponent, but it'd probably come at the cost of your deck's defense and removal. So I mean, there wouldn't be a lot of room for error there. Your mindset would be, I can take whatever they can dish out, instead of the conventional, you know, remove problems as they arise. And some people out there might be thinking, you know, gee, this is dangerously close to stall. And those people are what I like to call wrong. The big difference between this and stall is stall discourages battle phase interactions between both players. It also artificially causes a stalemate to where neither player or only one player can use their battle phase. You know, if you had a bunch of good life point gain cards to where you were at like 14,000 or 15,000 life points, your opponent can just still summon monsters and attack and kill you. You know, they would just have to alter how they went about doing it. If they wanted to summon, you know, 1,800 beater and just try and protect that and get a whole bunch of pokes in, okay, there's obviously that way. Or they could try and drop, you know, 10,000 damage on board, and if they fell into a Torrential Tribute, well, whose fucking fault is that? Alright, so you guys tell me if this card is OP. This is just a card that I was actually thinking up just specifically for this video. 1,800 attack, 1,600 defense, Fire Pyro level 4, Once per turn during your end phase, you can gain 2,000 life points. If this card is in your graveyard, you may banish it to add 1 copy of a card of the same name to your hand. I mean, I really don't think it's broken. You know, it provides no immediate card advantage. 2,000 life points isn't like super game breaking, but it's enough to make a difference. You know, it has solid stats, and it only replaces itself when it actually dies and goes to the graveyard. I mean, this is not something where it's going to be a behemoth. It's not searchable. I mean, I think that this is a perfectly balanced card, but this is the type of cards that we need in the game that could take, you know, a dozen competitive cards like Burst Rebirth or Mirror Wall or Ancient Leaf. I mean, Ancient Leaf is so good, but you can't fucking ever use it. You know, it would make these cards actually playable. So this is just something that I was thinking of. I felt like making a video about it. Tell me what you guys think. Thank you for watching. Subscribing makes life happy.